16-year-old Sara Weaver's family was under siege on top of a mountain at Ruby Ridge. 2 were dead, including her 14-year-old brother Sam.
To think of never being able to see him again, it was just heartbreaking.
And unknown to those holed up in the house, a U.S. Marshal.
At this point in time, the Marshal teams have been pulled out. The perimeter has been turned over to the FBI.
Neighbors came out to support Randy and his family. Tensions were high.
They're harassing me.
For Sara and her family, that first night in the cabin was traumatic.
My mom went upstairs to her room, and my dad went up to comfort her, and we were all lost.
And Sara says her family believed it was no accident. The feds had been after Randy Weaver for 18 months.
My parents knew that they were under surveillance. We didn't know that they were that close.
The next morning, the dog started barking again. Randy and family friend Kevin went outside to investigate.
He had gotten around the corner of that shed when I heard the gunshot.
Sara says her father had been shot in the shoulder at the door where her brother Sam's body still lay.
And at that point, I was like, we have to get inside. They're just shooting at us. And so my mom was standing in front of the door. She was holding my little sister, who was 10 months old. The only thing I was aware of was just trying to get my dad inside the house. And I was right in line with my mom. And I literally heard and felt the loudest boom just in my ear. And I felt just stuff hit my face, and my mom just dropped. And I felt Kevin from behind me just fall through the front door. And everyone around me was just dropping.
10-month-old Elishaba had fallen to the floor from her mom's arms, covered in Vicky's blood.
You have 2 family members down. Your dad's been shot. Kevin critically shot.
I thought they're picking us off one by one. Half my family's down. It's just a matter of time.
Sara says they closed the curtains, put a blanket over Vicky, and tried to stay out of sight.
They weren't negotiating. They were just shooting.
The days started to slowly tick by.
Are you eating? Are you sleeping?
No.
I don't mean to sound morbid with this question, but after days, there's clearly an odor from a decomposing body.
And all the blood on the floor. Yeah. I think I tried to focus on keeping all of us alive.
As Sara's focus was on survival, FBI agents outside were focused on getting as close as possible.
They moved in under the house. We didn't know what they were doing, if they were putting up listening devices. But my dad was screaming at them. My wife, Vicky, is dead. My son is dead. Kevin is wounded and dying. And nothing.
And down the mountain, there were media, heavily armed federal agents, and angry protesters.
And I know Randy, and he wouldn't hurt a soul. This is crazy.
But I'll go up there right now if they'll drop me in by helicopter and die with them, because it ain't right.
During the standoff, did you want to surrender?
The offer of surrender felt very fake to me and like a trap just to get my head out where it could be shot off.
But negotiations improved when they brought in former Green Beret and presidential candidate Bo Gritz.
He was making such statements as, well, we're not ready right now.
Bo Gritz eventually did what law enforcement hadn't been able to do. He convinced Randy to surrender. 11 days later, after the horrible siege began, the remaining family walked out holding hands.
Every step that I took that I didn't get shot, I was surprised.
Randy Weaver was taken into custody and charged with multiple federal crimes, including the original firearms charge and the murder of the U.S. Marshal. But in the end, those charges didn't stick. Weaver was only convicted of failing to appear in court on the original firearms charge.
Mr. Weaver was found not guilty of anything involving the gun charge, which he was entrapped. He was found not guilty with respect to murder.
Kevin Harris was acquitted of all criminal charges.
I just want to thank the jury for 6 months. Everything.
Because of the events that took place at Ruby Ridge, the official rules of engagement were rewritten, stating that deadly force can be used only when necessary, when there's a reasonable belief in imminent danger of death or serious injury to oneself or another, and cannot be used when a sufficient alternative is available. A verbal warning, if feasible, must be given. The Weavers sued the U.S. government. The case was settled out of court.
The government admitted absolutely no wrongdoing.
2 FBI agents were prosecuted. One received 18 months in prison. The other walked after charges were dismissed. Randy received $100,000 and his 3 girls received $1 million each.
In a lot of ways, it felt like blood money, and you can't put a dollar amount on loss of life.
Sara got something else from the government when it was all over.
This was the guest house that was up at Ruby Ridge. My dad was shot actually opening this shed to take one last grieving time with my brother Sam. He was shot from the mountainside somewhere over in this direction, and that bullet actually went through his shoulder and exited the building here.
Wait, that's the bullet hole?
Yes.
Right here?
Yes. From the same bullet.
That's a high-powered weapon.
So Sam was here.
This would have been the guest bed area where they laid him. It's very hard to think that that was the last day that I saw him alive.
Why do you keep this shed on the property to this day?
Things like this, they help me feel close to my family members that I've lost, and they help me let them go at the same time.
Sara says life since Ruby Ridge has been challenging.
Very dark and very hard for a long time. I felt like the whole world hated us. People said, terrible things like we got what we deserved.
Then through some soul searching and a lot of prayer, Sara turned a corner.
I have come to a place of forgiveness, and it's freedom for me.
Today, Sara is happily married with a son of her own, but she misses the family she's lost and is thankful for the family she still has.
Are you close to your dad and sisters today?
Yes, yeah. We live in the same area, and I see them often, and they've been to hell and back, and I'm just grateful that they're still here.
Sara recently published a book about what happened at Ruby Ridge and the road to forgiveness. We got information about that book on our website, crimewatchdaily.com.